It's all covered in today's China Truths.
Angola is on fire. Anti-China chaos is sweeping across Africa. Factories burn, businesses collapse, and Beijing is rushing to get its people out. This is China Truths, where we bring you the news and stories that Chinese state media hides. According to the news we just received, in Angola's industrial heartland, black smoke spirals into the sky. Crowds storm Chinese-owned factories and shops, tearing down shutters, smashing windows, and setting warehouses ablaze. What started as a single labor dispute has exploded into a continental rebellion. From Tanzania to Kenya to South Africa, anti-China unrest is spreading like wildfire. For 2 decades, Beijing pumped billions into Africa, roads, railways, ports, even entire industrial parks, all built in exchange for oil, minerals, and strategic influence. Angola, rich with resources, became one of Beijing's crown jewels in the Belt and Road Empire. Chinese companies won the big projects. Chinese workers arrived in droves, and Chinese traders quickly dominated local markets. On the surface, it looked like a win-win. But beneath the glossy promises, resentment was festering. African workers complained of long hours, unsafe conditions, and being passed over for promotions. Communities accused Chinese-run projects of polluting rivers and stripping land bare. For years, governments that relied on Chinese loans brushed these voices aside. But then came the rise of social media. Videos of clashes, land grabs, and abusive managers went viral, igniting anger far beyond local borders. In Angola, that anger finally exploded. A strike at a Chinese textile factory turned violent after security guards reportedly attacked workers. Within hours, the protest transformed into full-blown riots against Chinese businesses. Police couldn't control the crowds. By the second day, Luanda looked like a war zone. Charred factories, gutted storefronts, and streets filled with looted goods. And it didn't stop there. In Tanzania's Dar es Salaam, crowds stormed port facilities run by Chinese contractors. In Kenya, activists rallied against foreign exploitation. In South Africa, demonstrations turned violent. Across the continent, one spark had lit a fire Beijing could no longer ignore. As evacuation flights began leaving Angola, it became clear. This was no longer just a local crisis. It was a continent-wide uprising threatening not only China's investments, but its entire grip on Africa's future. In Kenya, chaos erupted at Mombasa's Chinese-built industrial park. Protesters blocked access roads, torched delivery trucks, and forced foreign workers to escape under heavy police guard. In Nairobi, mobs looted Chinese-owned shops across the central business district, while police later admitted they had focused on safeguarding embassies instead of private businesses. South Africa witnessed the most organized escalation. In Johannesburg, powerful labor unions staged massive rallies outside Chinese logistics centers, accusing Beijing of crushing local industries and bringing in near-slave labor practices. Clashes soon broke out with private security forces, leaving multiple people injured and prompting the shutdown of several Chinese warehouses. Beijing wasted no time in reacting. The foreign ministry issued urgent warnings to Chinese nationals, labeling Africa a high-risk zone. Charter flights were dispatched, and even naval transport ships were sent to evacuate citizens from Angola, Tanzania, and Kenya. State media broadcasted emotional scenes of families boarding evacuation planes, portraying them as victims of anti-foreign hysteria, while carefully avoiding any mention of the deeper grievances fueling the uprising. African leaders now find themselves cornered. On one side, the public is demanding an end to what they see as exploitation by Chinese companies. On the other, governments remain deeply tied to Beijing through loans, trade, and infrastructure projects. Official statements denounce violence, but quietly press China to resolve labor disputes and environmental abuses. Meanwhile, economic disruptions are spreading. Port blockades in Kenya and Tanzania are delaying food and goods shipments, while Angola's mining operations are stalling as Chinese engineers flee. Investors are on edge, fearing the unrest could hit other Chinese hubs in Ethiopia, Nigeria, and Zambia. The anger is rooted in years of frustration. Across Africa, workers in Chinese-run factories complain of wages below industry standards, unsafe conditions, and no path to advancement. Management jobs are often handed to imported Chinese staff, leaving qualified locals sidelined. These practices fuel the perception that Beijing's projects serve its own agenda, not Africa's workforce. Environmental destruction adds fuel to the fire. In Angola, villagers blame Chinese oil refineries and mines for poisoned rivers and ruined farmland. In Kenya, deforestation linked to Chinese logging concessions is sparking outrage. Tanzanian fishing communities say Chinese port expansion has gutted their livelihoods. From polluted waters to stripped forests, many Africans feel their resources are being drained without fair return. Governments heavily indebted to Beijing rarely intervene. With Chinese loans financing mega projects and companies controlling critical assets, officials hesitate to challenge abuses. Citizens see this complicity and believe their leaders are protecting Beijing over their own people. That perception of betrayal has driven many to take justice into their own hands, sometimes violently. And what once stayed local is now continental. Social media spreads these uprisings at lightning speed. Images of burning factories in Angola instantly travel to Tanzania and Kenya, inspiring new protests. Videos of looted shops in Nairobi circulate as rallying cries in Johannesburg. The grievances differ slightly by country, but the bigger story, exploitation, inequality, and unaccountable power, is the same everywhere. The spark in Angola has now ignited a wildfire across Africa. What began as scattered labor disputes is morphing into a continent-wide resistance movement that threatens not just China's investments, but its entire future on African soil. The wave of violence spreading from Angola to the rest of Africa has left deep scars on both local and Chinese communities, and the damage runs far beyond broken glass and burning factories. In Angola's capital, Luanda, the sudden shutdown of Chinese factories and warehouses has thrown thousands out of work. For many families, even these low-paid, difficult jobs were their only lifeline. Now, entire households are struggling overnight. In coastal hubs like Dar es Salaam and Mombasa, Chinese-run ports and logistics centers have gone silent. Ships are delayed, food and goods are piling up, and local markets are already seeing prices soar. Small shops that depended on Chinese supply chains are facing shortages that could drive them out of business altogether. Infrastructure losses are just as severe. In Tanzania, vandalism of Chinese heavy machinery has frozen critical road projects, leaving rural communities cut off from markets and services. Instead of progress, frustration only grows, deepening the very conditions that sparked unrest in the first place. For Africans, the riots are a desperate outcry against exploitation and a bitter reminder that their own governments often fail to protect them. For Chinese workers, the violence confirms fears that they are not seen as partners, but as intruders. Mistrust is hardening on both sides, making any path to reconciliation more difficult. The economic fallout is already visible. Insurance claims are soaring. Investors are pulling back. African governments face an impossible choice. They need Chinese capital to rebuild, but their citizens are pushing back harder than ever against Beijing's influence. And China's flagship Belt and Road projects, once considered untouchable, now look vulnerable to collapse if the unrest spreads further. But perhaps the deepest wound is the breakdown of trust between everyday people. Where once there was daily trading cooperation, now there is suspicion. Without real reforms, better labor rights, real environmental accountability, and fairer partnerships, this crisis won't just be about property destroyed, but about a relationship decades in the making falling apart. What started in Angola is no longer an isolated crisis. It's a warning shot at the very foundation of China's role in Africa. For years, Beijing sold the idea of partnership, factories, railways, ports, in exchange for resources and influence. But the burning warehouses and mass evacuations tell a harsher truth. Public anger can wipe out even the strongest economic ties in a matter of days. If these grievances remain unanswered, today's unrest could evolve into a continent-wide resistance to Beijing's model of development. Social media is already turning scattered protests into a single movement that can mobilize within hours. The next spark, at a mine, a port, or a construction site could ignite an even larger uprising. The question is, will Beijing and Africa's governments finally listen to their people, or will they double down and risk an irreversible collapse in relations? Angola's riots may be the beginning of a new chapter, one where Africa no longer quietly accepts Beijing's terms. What do you think? Are we seeing the start of Africa pushing back against China for good? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And if this gave you a new perspective, subscribe to China Truths and hit the bell so you never miss what Chinese state media will never reveal to you.
Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.